Hey, 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 today is unbelievably National Sugar Cookie Day. Yes, National Sugar Cookie Day. I don't know. I have to be very honest. I have never been a big fan of sugar cookies. To me, they always seemed a bit, I don't know, blah, I guess I would say. But then again, I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who love sugar cookies because they still sell them. Anyway, it is Monday, so let's get the week off and running because the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, Jeff McAleer back once again as your host here at the Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the Grand Poobah. So I am coming to you live from the Duct Tape Studios, as usual. And do want to apologize, show's a little bit late today. I don't know what it is. It just seems to be Mondays. I boot up the computer and the sound is out of sync, and I got to play around with the sound, make sure it's in sync. So hopefully right now, everything is in sync. So today I am going to be reviewing Raiders of the North Sea from Renegade Game Studios, as well as Garphill Games. And I do believe it's pronounced Garphill, not Garphill, but I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to be reviewing that. I'm going to actually talk a little bit about how to play the game as well. Do want to mention today, really no news. And part of the reason for that is last night I had to watch my nephew and my niece because my brother and my sister-in-law were both flying, so they were working. So I went over, but I did get to play quite a few games with my nephew and some of his friends, including more Raiders of the North Sea. Finally got a 4-player game of that going, so that was pretty sweet. So really, as far as the news went today, I got home fairly late in the morning. Usually I'm banging away at getting the news ready for the show at around, I don't know, 10 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock. Really didn't see a whole lot that jumped out at me. There was one news item that I thought, hey, this is pretty cool, but I thought, if I want to do a whole news segment just for one news piece, I can just include it on tomorrow's show because it's not something that's coming out right now anyway. So that gives us plenty of time to kind of kick back, relax, and talk a bit about Raiders of the North Sea. So do want to point out this is a live stream through YouTube if you happen to be watching live, which I don't think too many people are right now because I was about 15 minutes late. So usually I think people pop in, take a peek and see the stream's not going and go, Jeff must be, not doing a show today. Maybe he's under the weather or something. But no, I'm fine. I'm doing well. And so do want to point out there is chat available on YouTube during the stream. So if there's something you want to get a closer look at in Raiders of the North Sea, or you have a question or comment or just want to say hello, feel free to chime in and I will respond. Chat is not on screen, and that's one of the ways that I kind of keep some of the trolls at bay. All right, so before I jump in, just want to talk a little bit about my weekend. Had a lot of fun, played a lot of games, and I actually, I introduced my nephew Cameron and some of his friends to the MMO Neverwinter, the D&D online role-playing game. And they're hooked. Now they're hooked on that. So I thought that was kind of funny. I'm level 69. It's got a cap level of like 70, if I remember correctly. So my second character is at level 69. And I kind of took them on a bit of a tour online. Because it's a game that's got a lot going on in it. And if you just kind of jump in, you're going to miss out on a lot of different ways to get different currencies and things like that. One thing I have to point out I like about Neverwinter is that, yes, granted, there is a pay aspect if you want to, but you can enjoy the game just fine without ever spending a dime because it is free to play. It is not necessarily pay to win. if you're willing to, once you get to high levels, kind of grind and things like that. But anyway, so we had a good time doing that. So coming up on this week's shows, change things up a little bit, but tomorrow I am going to take a look and unbox Mystic Vale Twilight Garden, the expansion for the John D. Clare game. That's Mystic Vale. It's done very, very well for AEG. So that's going to be on tomorrow's show. Then on Wednesday, for Wargame Wednesday, whoa, this is heavy, I'm going to unbox, if I turn it up right side, Skies Above the Reich from GMT Games. This is a solitaire game. I believe there's aspects you can play 2 players where you are actually trying to defend Hitler's Reich against the Allied air offensive. So a lot of strategic bombing, things like that. Looks very interesting. And there's a lot of heft to this box. I will tell you that right now. So that is on Wednesday's show. On Thursday's show, Thursdays I like to do RPGs, so I am going to dive in and take a look at Mutant Year Zero. This is the core book from Free League and Modifius Entertainment. I have always heard good things about Mutant Year Zero. If you are interested in some of the Free League products out there, I've got a few. First looks, I'm going to do some reviews. I'm almost done reading Tales from the Loop, the core book for that. Very interesting, very rules light. I was a little surprised. It was very rules light, and it's a system that's kind of designed more for kind of one-shots and like short little campaigns, almost like, say, a season of a TV series on Netflix, possibly. So, I do believe that Mutant Year Zero is more... there's a lot of material out there for this. I know there's like 2 other core books for different aspects of this setting and a lot of campaign books. So we're going to take a look at this because, once again, like I said, I've always heard really good things about Mutant Year Zero, and the fine folks at Free League sent me some products. So that's on Thursday. And then on Friday, we're going to do another dip into the AEG pool with Istanbul, the dice game. I don't know why I want to keep saying Istanbul. It's Istanbul. Duh. Gosh, I'm such a dope. All right, so this is the kind of dice game edition of the board game Istanbul. But when I talked to John Zinzer at Origins Game Fair, we talked about this a little bit, and he said there's a difference to it. It's not just a complete port of the board game as dice. There's a little, some different wrinkles to the gameplay. So I got to be honest, I'm not familiar with Istanbul, the board game. So I am looking forward to this. And of course, it's kind of a trading game. So that should be cool. So that's a pretty good fit for Family Fun Friday this week. And then, of course, next week is going to be San Diego Comic-Con. So I'll have a show on Monday. I'm a little up in the air on Tuesday because we're flying out first thing Wednesday morning because, as the press, we get the preview night. And, of course, we need to check into our hotel and all this other stuff. So we're leaving on the first flight out of O'Hare on next Wednesday. Not this coming Wednesday, the following Wednesday. So I don't know. I'll see what I can do. But I do want to point out that I do have some standalone videos that I've put together that I am going to start kind of releasing on the side, as well as try to kind of have stocked up for when I'm off covering San Diego Comic-Con. Because I'll be very honest, a lot of times we don't get a ton of video at San Diego Comic-Con because a lot of these conventions have kind of changed the ways that that the press can cover it. Especially conventions that have like their own special, streaming. A lot of them don't let us shoot video of stuff anymore, like panels, like C2E2 doesn't allow us to do videos of any of the panels and stuff. So the reality is it's kind of tough to actually provide video coverage. So I will have some stuff floating out there. I've got a review of Fort Sumter, the Secession Crisis, 1860-1861 from GMT Games. So that's going to be a standalone. I've got the Robotech Force of Arms from Solar Flare Games. That'll be coming out. I've got a look at Ya Magazine, number 11, from my good friends over at Flying Pig Games. And I've got some other stuff cooking too. because I know some people enjoy the live stream and the kind of, casual kicking back style of the Daily Dope. And then other folks are kind of like, nah, I just want to see the game, man. I don't need news. I don't need, the background tales and stuff like that. So I do understand that. So I do want to kind of appeal to both kinds of crowds. But also, one other thing I do want to mention, and I'm going to try to do this on every show, is thanks so much to the subscribers out there. Finally did crack the 1,000 subscribers over on YouTube, so that was very cool. And I seem to be getting a bit more subscribers here and there than I have over, let's say, I don't know, first 6 years of the channel. But then again, I am not one who, excuse my French, but I'm not one who really pimps my website that much. I'm not out there like always like pushing the Gaming Gang or pushing the channel on YouTube and the Daily Dope, things like that. So anyway, all right. So I know folks are tuning in. They want to see the kind of how to play as well as the review of Raiders of the North Sea. So do want to point out, as I mentioned previously, it is from Garphill Games. Like I said, I'm almost positive it's Garphill, not Garphill, and Renegade Game Studios. It's designed by Shem Phillips, with artwork provided by, and I know I'm going to be nowhere close on this pronunciation, Mihailo Dimitrievsky. Sorry, I tried. The game is for 2 to 4 players, ages 12 and up, plays in around 1 to 2 hours. That is pretty legit on the gameplay time. For some folks, it might be shorter. For some folks, it might go longer, and I'll explain in just a few minutes why. It is available right now and has been out for quite a while, about a year, I want to say. And you can find it, the MSRP is $50. And I do want to point out, not that I'm telling you not to go to your friendly local game store, okay? People get this weird idea when I mention what I've seen it online for, that I'm trying to like take, food out of people's mouths who run your local game store. I'm not. I'm just pointing out the MSRP is $50. I have seen it as low as about $35 online. So if saving a few bucks is really important to you, you may want to take a peek at picking it up online. All right, so what I'm going to do here is let's pop over to the other camera. So I have kind of squeezed things in once again, as I normally have to do. It's kind of, it's a little crooked. Let's kind of straighten that out a little bit. So the game board isn't huge, but it is yay big, right? So I don't have monster hands, but I don't have little tiny hands either. So got a pretty good sized board. I am kind of cutting something off with my mug up in the corner here, and I will actually pull this back a little bit so I can show you. It's just an early part of the one track here and one of the locations. So in Raiders of the North Sea, what this game is each of the players, once again, 2 to 4 players, are going to represent kind of clans of Vikings who are going off to raid different settlements, different places. And they're doing that not only to, gain wealth and everything, but they're also doing it to impress their chief, which I believe it's, their chieftains are pronounced Jarls, if I remember right. It's been a while since I watched Vikings on the channel. So they don't call it History Channel because they don't have hardly anything historical anymore, outside of maybe Vikings. But I think it was Jarls. But anyway, I might be way off base. So that's what the players are doing. The players are actually, leading their tribes as they go on raids. They're going to make tributes to the chieftain. And of course, whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins. This is not a very difficult game to wrap your head around, although there are aspects to it that can lead to some analysis paralysis. I gotta be honest, playing with Cameron, myself, his other friend who's named Cameron, Kyle, and also Daniel have played, not all at once, obviously, it's only for 4 players, but I have played this quite a bit. But a couple of the players, especially in the first game, did get to a point, about the midway point, where they kind of started to bog down a little bit, which I thought was surprising. I would have thought that would have been a little earlier in the game, that their thought process would have bogged down. But I got to be honest, myself and Cameron and a couple of the other friends, I don't want to name anybody by name by saying, well, you know, they starting to get a little too analytical. But Cameron and myself, and we have played this as a 2-player game as well. Cameron and myself, kind of once we learned how the game worked, like the first, I don't know, 3 rounds of the game, boom, we were good to go. We were cool. So, and even, you know, in really close contests, still didn't sit there like overthinking things. So I don't know. I'm just pointing out that I did see it. That might happen to some people. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of take a tour of the board here, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit because I have the camera way up, wow, way up there shooting down. And I'll try to zoom in a little bit. And I apologize that the board is kind of like sideways, but there's just no way I'm going to be able to shoot this the way I've got it set up and show this game off without kind of doing it sideways. Plus, this is actually how you're probably going to be looking at the board when you're playing with 2 players, with 1 player on one side and the other player kind of where I'm sitting. Okay, so this is a worker placement kind of game with some wrinkles to it, because you're going to utilize your worker placement to do various different actions, but you're also going to have a crew of Vikings, and they are represented by this deck of cards. And you can have, at most, you can have 5 Vikings in your crew. So that's a little bit of a different aspect, because these Vikings are going to have special abilities for both when they're raiding as well as when you are in the village. So, and of course, I'll get into this with a little more detail in just a moment. Then, as I mentioned, you are trying to pay tribute to the chieftain. And no doubt, this is supposed to be the chieftain. So we've got these tiles, and you'll have a stack of these tiles that will be face down near this section of the board. Now, these tributes will show you how many victory points. So the banner that's in the upper right corner is going to show you how many victory points these are worth, as well as what does it cost you to be able to get this this tribute. So, and I don't know why, there seems to be like a little kind of hiccup with the video right now, or at least there's a hiccup in the video from what I'm seeing. It's like a little black line that's shooting through, and I don't know why that would be happening. All right, yes, I love it. I love when things go on that I have no control over. Anyway, all right, so for an example, this would require 1 iron resource and 1 livestock resource to be able to purchase this. Plus, you would have to go to the longhouse with one of your workers to be able to perform that feat. And I'll show you a few other things as far as all workers are not equal. So there's going to be black, gray, and white workers. So we're going to talk about that in just a sec. But kind of going around, this is the earliest. Damn, I swear that that little hiccup in the video is really irritating me. I'm hoping it's not in the finished product. All right. But anyway, so this is the first kind of worker that you'll get. This is the worker that each of the players will start off with 1. And there will also be 3 on the board here. 1 at the gatehouse, 1 at the town hall, and 1 at the treasury. I don't know why I had him sitting on the barracks. So this is where you'll have these workers start off, and every player is going to start off with 1 worker as well. So going around the board a bit, here's the village, and I'm going to pull this down here so you can get a better look at the village here. So we have the gatehouse. The gatehouse is going to allow you, if you choose this location, this gatehouse will allow you to draw 2 cards from the deck. The treasury will allow you to discard a card from your hand to get 2 silver. This is the silver here, and it's kind of cool. These are actually metal coins as far as the silver, and the silver is what you use to actually purchase your crew, to pay your crew, as well as a lot of times with those tributes, you need to use silver. Or you can discard 2 cards and get gold, which gold is one of the resources. So this is the gold token here. And these are just wooden pieces. Pretty nicely done. I thought it was funny because Cameron just couldn't get over the fact that there's metal coins in this game. And I thought, well, yeah, that's kind of a cool little extra added touch to the game. So we've got the gatehouse, we've got the treasury, then we've got the town hall. And the town hall will usually allow you to activate an ability that one of your crew members has. So as far as the crew, and we're going to look in a little deeper detail into the crew in just a sec, but a lot of times the crew members are going to have this little side here with a little kind of like blue card with the white arrow on it. That represents the town hall. So if you use a worker to go to the town hall, then you can actually activate one of the abilities that might be on one of your crew's cards. So for an example here, we've got the cartographer, lose 1 provision to gain 1 gold. So that is the town hall. Then we've got the armory, and the armory allows you to armor up your crew. And you can spend one of the iron, which is another resource, looks just like that, to gain 2 on this track. And this track is actually going to be the number that you're going to add to your crew total, as well as your dice total when you go on raids. They are also worth, at certain points on this track, additional victory points. So armor of 3 is worth 2 victory points, 6 is worth 4, 9 is worth 6, and the max you can have is 10. Each of the players are going to have, and I set this up for a 2-player game, each of the players are going to have 3 banners of their colors. So I've got green and red as the 2 players here, and you're going to have the green and red on the armor track. You're going to have green and red on the Valkyrie track, which I will talk about in just a second. And then you see also, once again, we have these banners here. That's showing how many victory points you get along this track. And then around the board is the overall victory point total track. So once again, we've got that. That goes up to 49. If you were to go over, or if you have 50 or more victory points, I should say, each player has a card in their color. So we've got the green and the red, and this is just standard. And then if you happen to end up getting 50 victory points on the track, you just flip over the card to represent, okay, well, I also have 50 victory points. Cool thing too is on the bottom here, it also shows how you score the final scoring in the game. So of course, there are 4 colors for the 4 players. We've got green, red, blue, and yellow. So of course, we've got 4 of those ship cards. So continuing to take a look at the village here, then we have the mill. So if you use a black worker, and I know that just sounds, to me, it just sounds weird saying that. I apologize. I know. We were sitting there going, you know, that just sounds racist. But I mean, it is the color of this little token, so, and they are workers, so you get 1 provision. These are provisions. These little kind of like card stock bags. Those are provisions for your crew. You need provisions to go raiding. So if you use the black worker in here, you'll get 1 provision. If you use a gray worker, you'll get 2 provisions. And if you use a white worker, you get 2 provisions, or you can choose 1 gold. Then we've got the silversmith. If you use the black worker here, you're going to get 3 silver. Or if you use gray or white, you only get 2 silver. Then I can start sliding this back up, because we've seen the other stuff there. I just want to get the... There we go. Get the victory point row here in. So then we've got the barracks, and the barracks allows you to, when you'll have a hand of cards, you're going to eventually have a hand of crew cards, and the maximum you can have in your hand is 8. So it's a max crew of 5, a max card hand of cards is 8. So just like the most silver you can have, the limit to silver is 8. The limit of provisions you may have is also 8. One thing to also point out when we're talking about these different resources and the silver and the provisions, if you run out of that sort of resource or silver or provisions, then that's it. You can only use what you've got a stock of. Doesn't happen really in a 2-player game, but it can become something to keep an eye on in a 4-player game. So the barracks will allow you to pay. So for an example, here we've got the Gravedigger, and we see the Gravedigger right after his name. It's showing 1 silver coin. So that means you would pay 1 silver to recruit this member to your crew, this villager to your crew. So we've got that. Then we have the Longhouse. And the Longhouse is pretty interesting because you have to keep an eye on, and I'm going to swing this down here. Some of these, if it just shows a little circle here, that means you could use any sort of worker to go there. So you start off with the black workers. So you can put that in any circle that's just showing a circle at the building. But the armory, as well as the Longhouse, only take gray or white workers. And as you advance through your raids and you get further up and start taking on more and more difficult locations, you're going to unlock the different color workers to use. So I know the first time we played early on, we kept sending players or sending workers to the Longhouse, not realizing it was only the gray or the white you could use. You could not use one of these starter workers. I guess that's a good way to put it, starter worker. Okay, so what the Longhouse allows you to do, another resource is livestock. It's kind of funny, kind of a little cow head right there. And livestock are good for victory points, but you can also go to the Longhouse and cash in 1 livestock for 2 provisions, or if you have a worker at the Longhouse, you can pay the price for these tributes and take this, and of course it's replaced by one of the face down ones if you were to purchase that tribute. Now, one of the funny things is once you buy it, you're going to keep it with your supplies, your provisions, your silver, your resources, your crew, and you're going to keep it face down so that the other players aren't going to necessarily remember how many victory points you have from your tributes that you've bought. I can't I guess I would say underemphasize some of the importance of these tributes, because a lot of times the players are too really focused on the raiding part, and you can score some really solid victory points by going to the Longhouse and paying the price for these tribute tiles. All right, so got that out of the way. Then we've got the locations from this portion of the board on. These are the locations that the Vikings are going to raid. This is where your crew is going to raid. So we've got harbor locations here. We've got outpost locations. we've got monasteries, and then we have fortresses up top here. So as you move further inland, I guess we would say, it's going to a lot of times take more provisions, more crew, as well as sometimes you're going to have to pay gold to be able to go and raid these locations. So what you're able to do on each turn is you're going to have your worker. So you get an option. It's this pretty simple how you go about this. And if folks out there are familiar with Flux, the card game where it's basically draw a card, play a card, I kind of equated it to, okay, drop a worker, pick up a worker. Pretty easy. This is a rule of the game that's going to happen throughout. You're going to put down a worker. You're going to take whatever advantage, whatever action that worker at the location gives you. And then once you place it, do the action, you're going to remove another worker from a different location. It's always got to be a different location and take that action. Same goes for actually raiding, except you're just going to go to a location as long as you can meet the prerequisite of that location, and you're going to get whatever's in the box. Now, you'll see here, and I will actually zoom in a little bit on this. Let's see. There we go. That's a bit better. So you can see here, these are harbor locations. So either, I guess we'll say the starter worker or a gray worker can be placed here to raid one of these locations. So we see we've got the 3 harbor locations here. We've got the 3 little circles. They're showing that you could raid 3 different areas. It's going to tell you, okay, so you need to have 1 provision. This is what you're going to have to spend. 1 provision and have a crew of 3 in order to raid this harbor. So once you were able to do that, once you go in and raid it, then what you're looking at is you get to take what's in that box. And you start off the setup of the game by taking all the resources. You're going to take the livestock, you're going to take the iron, and you're going to take the gold, as well as these black tokens here, these little black skulls. These little black skulls, as I get really close and it went out of focus, these little black skulls are actually Valkyries. And you've got this draw bag. My gosh, got a little bit of cat hair already on this draw bag. So you're gonna take this draw bag and you're gonna take all the resources, so the livestock, the gold, and the iron, as well as the Valkyries. You're gonna put all of them in this bag, and then you're gonna go around the board in each of these locations, and I'll just move this out of the way so it's a little easier to see. So you see this says this is a 3, and then it shows gray. So you're going to make sure you got a gray worker in here, and then you're going to, from the bag, draw out 3 tokens, whatever they may be, and that's what you get. So it's all random. It's all randomized where things are at. One thing I should point out is, with these Valkyries, if you raid a location that has one of these Valkyrie tokens, then you will have to kill off one of your crew. So as an example, this location here, if somebody raids this location, they're actually going to have to kill off 2 crew members. But, get back out here. Once again, we have this Valkyrie track here. And one of the aspects of the Vikings is, you know, they want glory. They want a glorious death, so they can, you know, be raised up to Valhalla by the Valkyries. So actually losing crew can gain you victory points. So, and I'll tell you what, if you get to the point where you've lost 7 crew, you get a big whopping 15 victory points. That is huge. Now, of course, got to point out, you're also, you know, cycling through a bunch of crew that you're paying for. But I got to be honest, the last 2-player game that I played against Cameron, I swear the defining factor that won me the game was that I actually had lost a bunch of crew, and I started playing to go to locations where I would lose crew as opposed to keeping the crew. It was bizarre, but I did end up winning by 1 victory point. So I thought that was kind of cool, kind of wild. So, all right, so to begin the game, you're going to have each player is going to receive 5 cards from the villager deck. So these are the potential crew members that you can have. So you're going to get 5 cards, and you're going to take a look, and you're going to keep 3 of the cards and then place the other 2 back on top of the deck. So for an example here, I've got a couple of grave diggers, I've got a huntsman, a shield maiden, and a recruiter. So it's important for you to look at a few things on the card. So we're going to take a look at the shield maiden here. So the first thing you're going to look at is this red banner in the upper left corner. So that's kind of their military strength. That's how many points you're going to add to you when you go and raid a location. Because once you start getting into outposts and monasteries and fortresses, you're going to see that they're not necessarily requirements, but the more military strength you have, the more victory points you will get from going and actually raiding that location. Now, the harbor areas here, they only give you 1 victory point, and there are no military strength banners here for you to best. So, for an example, so we're looking here. So we've got a strength of 3. Then we see we've got the 3 silver coins that run right along the side here. So we know that it would cost 3 silver to hire the shield maiden. Then let's see what we got. Gain 1 victory point when raiding a monastery, and lose 1 livestock to gain 1 iron. So we see the black with the plus. That means what is the bonus that they give you being part of your crew during a raid? Now, some of these characters will have both sides show something that you can get from a raid. So you basically choose one of those benefits. Most of the time, you're going to see 1 on a raid and 1 over here for the village. When you go to the town hall, that's a possibility. So for an example, then we've got the recruiter. You pay 1 less silver when hiring crew from the barracks. And then that's all the time. So the interesting thing too is some of the way the cards are kind of set out. We thought that's this is only during raids and this is only during the town hall. That's true. This is only during the town hall, the little blue one, but the black with the plus, there are sometimes some cards which it doesn't have anything to do with raiding. It has to do with the village. Now, should show you real quick. The rules are very, very short. Nicely presented. We didn't have any like scratching of our heads or anything like that. There is some clarifications for the town folk who become your crew, but actually I should say the black plus is the barracks. What am I thinking? The raids. Maybe it does show the raids like that too. I'll have to take a look. We'll find one because there's well, we just had the shield maiden actually telling us that she gave us the so here. So with the plus on the left side it says once per raid, you may re-roll 1 die. So he's the brawler. So that's his skill, but it's kind of weird because it says, well, it's the barracks. It's really more like a raid skill. So a little bit of confusion with that, but not anything difficult. You just have to look to see, okay, what does it tell you that your crew member does? All right, so everybody's going to get their 5 cards. Here's the shield maiden. Okay, so let's say for an example, all right, so I decide I want to start off with having these 3 cards in my hand. So first turn, I'm going to just put those there. These would go on here. Just as an example, I'm just going to put them on the bottom of the deck. So looking here, these are not your crew member. You don't have them yet. You do have to hire them. So the game will take a few rounds, few turns, what have you, to kind of ramp up. So let's say, for an example, okay, so I'm the first player. I decide first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the silversmith with my worker, and I'm going to take 3 silver. And then remember, I said you place a worker, you take a worker. And I'll say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to take the worker from the gatehouse, and I'm going to draw 2 more cards. Boom, boom, 2 more cards. There you go. So that'd be the first turn. So next turn, let's say the other player says, okay, well, I'm going to go to the mill, so I'm going to get me a provision. So I take a provision, and then I decide, okay, well, I'm going to take that worker off of the silversmith, and I'm going to get 3 silver. So, moving, and I'm telling you, 2-player game, like I said, we did find with some players there was a little bit of a, ooh, what do I do now? Because sometimes it feels like your choices might be limited. I don't really think so. But then again, you know, I'm not like a huge Euro gamer in the first place. I really like this because there is some Euro game mechanics. Of course, obviously the worker placement. But what I dig is paying attention to what does your crew do and what cards do you maybe have in your hand that you can utilize like right at the end of the game. So for an example, you've got a really weak town person that will give you 1 additional victory point for every one of these tributes that you purchase for the chieftain. And there was another game I played that she had a 0 military, so she doesn't really help you on raids, but I knew the game was going to end soon, so I went and I actually replaced one of my crew members who was pretty tough with her because I had like 5 of these tiles, and I knew, okay, that's an extra 5 victory points, and won that game. I ended up winning that game by, I think, 3 victory points. So once again, a little twist at the end that basically snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. So what you're going to do is you're going to eventually go through the process of like building up your crew. So kind of adding along the way I was doing it before. So let's say it's my turn again. I say, okay, I'm going to go to the barracks and I hire the Shield Maiden. So now the Shield Maiden would come out and she joins my crew. And like I said, space is kind of tight here. So of course you would have this in the middle, 1 player's over here, another one's over here, a couple over, 1 on each side here. So usually you're gonna have a lot more room while you're playing than I've got on the screen here. So I would say, okay, so I'm hiring the Shield Maiden, I'm paying my 3 silver, boom, go back in there. Now I get to draw, I get to take up a worker again. So I say, okay, well, I'm gonna take the worker from the mill so I can get a provision. So what you're eventually doing is you're basically kind of building up your crew so you can start on the easy harbors. You can go into the harbors. So for an example here, this harbor here, you only need 2 provisions and 2 crew members. So say for an example, I've got a crew where it's, let's say I hired the recruiter and I've got my Shield Maiden, right? So basically that's telling me I've got a military strength of 4, which I don't have to worry about just yet because we're going into the harbor here. We're not going into the monastery or fortress or outposts. So I'd say, okay, I got my 2 crew members. I take my worker and I go, okay, so I'm going to raid the harbor. So I have a choice of this box, or that box. This has a Valkyrie, so if I go and I raid that, then obviously I know I'm going to have to kill off one of my crew members. Same here. I lose a crew member. Here is a pretty good haul because it's 2 iron, 1 gold, and a livestock, plus I get a gray worker that opens up new options for me. I say, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to raid that. So I'm going to get this stuff. I didn't lose any crew. And now that worker is going to stay here. That worker is not going to come off this location again. So that's showing once a location's been raided, it cannot be raided again. There's nothing there. There's nothing to get from that. So I say, okay, well, hey, now I get 1 victory point for raiding that harbor. So I'd move that on up. And I've got some new goodies, some new resources. And then I've got my gray workers. So let's say other player takes their turn. Now it's my turn again. So now I have a gray worker in my inventory. This is my new worker I can use. And I say, okay, well, you know what? I want to prep up for more raids. I'm going to the mill because my gray guy is going to give me 2 provisions. So I got my 2 provisions. I got that. And I'll be like, okay, now I take another worker back. So I'm either going to take it from the town hall, take it from the barracks, or take it from the treasury. So I say, well, geez, I don't have any silver right now. I can't hire anybody. So I think I'm either going to use my, I could use my shield maiden's ability from the town hall, or I could say, okay, well, I got 3 cards in my hand. I'm not all that fond of these 3 cards. I'm going to go to the treasury. I'm going to take the treasury here. I'm going to discard one of my cards. Boom, I'm off discarding it, and I get 2 silver. And so on and so forth. So you're going to keep going through this process until one of 3 things will happen. And of course, you'll, like I said, you'll have a crew of 5. Now here I need to, let me see if I can find one that should be able to. Come on, where are you at? There we go. See, now this one at least, it's pretty easy to see. So on this character is a hero, and it says right here on his card that he's a hero, and it kind of shows up because it's on the background is a blue shield in the artwork, and I like the artwork. I think the artwork's really cool. I do dig the artwork. It's got like a kind of, you know, sort of odd twist to the art, but I do dig it. I do like it quite a bit. So you can see he's a hero. Now, it'll say right here, you cannot have more than 1 hero. So you can't have more than 1 hero in your crew. One problem that we ran across is some of these hero cards, and there aren't a ton of them. That's why I had to kind of, I'm kind of looking through the deck here. But we did run across like 2 or 3. Now, of course, as I'm looking through, it's taking me forever to find it. That they're a hero, but it's kind of hard to see that they're a hero, right? You have to look close. So right here, Folky, his hero is kind of, it's almost like lost in the print. So you have to look close at the hero cards. Now, like I said, there aren't a ton, but there were a couple of times that we were playing, and of course you're sitting across the table from somebody, you can't necessarily make out exactly what their crew cards say. And there were a couple of times that we did see that a player had more than 1 hero in their crew, which you cannot do. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not a huge thing. It's just something to keep an eye peeled for, because there were, I think it's like 2 or 3 cards that we had kind of noticed that on. That it just, the hero text just kind of is almost washed out by the background. So eventually you're going to continue placing your workers. You're going to be raiding these different settlements. As you start getting into the outpost, the monastery, as well as the fortress, you're going to see, let's see if I zoom in a little bit on these, get you a little better look at it. I don't want to go too close. Nope, too close. There we go, the outpost. So the outpost, looking here, So it's going to tell you, okay, so it's 3 provision. You need a crew of 3. This is going to be the strength to get these victory points. And you're going to get to roll an averaging die. There are 2 dice included with the game. They are not standard 6-sided dice. They are 6-sided, but they are not numbered 1 through 6. They're actually numbered 2 through 5. They're what's known as averaging dice. So what you would do here is, say for an example, you decided you're raiding this outpost, and if you look, you need to have gray workers. You need to place a gray worker to be able to do this raid. Whereas, and that's something to keep in mind too, and you gotta keep an eye on some of the other players, because sometimes it'll be like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, so I'm gonna go raid and it's like, no, you gotta have a gray. Only gray can be used, which is an interesting little twist, because remember, you're placing a worker and you're taking a worker. So if there aren't any, like, say, white workers that you can pick up on your turn, you're not going to be able to use a white worker on the next turn to raid, say, a monastery or a fortress. So I thought that was a kind of a cool little thing. So what you would do is you would take your crew, let's say just out of random, right? I'm going to say, okay, so this is my crew of 5, which these guys aren't very good. They only have a strength of 6, but hopefully maybe I was actually sinking some iron or some silver into that armor track to give me bonuses to the rolls. Plus, I may take a look and say, hey, does anybody give me like an extra bonus when I attack an outpost? Because sometimes it will. Sometimes they'll say, oh, gain 1 strength, or sometimes it'll say, oh, get an additional victory point when you raid such and such. A harbor, an outpost, monastery, fortress. Well, let's say, for an example, none of these guys have any sort of bonuses, and I don't have any armor. So I've got 6. I'm going to roll my die, and of course you wouldn't roll it on the board, but I will. So I'd get a 3. That would give me 9. Well, unfortunately, to get victory points out of this raid, I would have needed to have a strength of 10. But I didn't. But let's say, for an example, I rolled a 5. Well, that would give me 11. That gives me 2 victory points. So, of course, that would move up the track. Now, as you move along, you're going to find like the fortresses start becoming worth a lot more victory points, 12, 10, 11. But you have to have a strength of 36, 32, 34. Now, of course, rolling these 2 dice, and it'll tell you how many dice right here, these shields, how many dice you get to roll during the raid, and you'll total that up, and you can get a crew that's got a pretty good strength by investing in the armor track here. So you could go all the way up to 10. So that would give you an additional 10. You roll this, it's possible of getting another 10. And then, maybe you've got like 16 total from your 5 crew members, maybe some bonuses. There's like one hero that gives you an additional like military strength point for every additional crew member besides themselves. So that's pretty cool. So eventually what you're going to do is you'll have worked your way through a lot of these different locations, the outposts, the monasteries, the fortresses, and the harbors. So when you get to a point, the end game triggers when one of 3 things take place. The first is if there are no Valkyries left on the board. If you've gone and raided every location with the Valkyries, and there are no Valkyries left, that triggers the end. If you've gone through your stack of tribute tiles, not all these sitting here, not including these, when this stack of tiles is gone, that will trigger the end of the game. Or when only 1 fortress remains that has not been raided, only one turn will remain. Now, something that was a little odd, but you know, I guess it's okay. I didn't have a huge issue with it. Was, let's say for an example, I triggered the end, right? Let's say there's only one fortress left, and we're playing, let's say, a 3-player game. So I triggered the end because I've raided the second to last fortress. Well, the other 2 players are going to get to take their turn after I've triggered the end game, but I also get another turn. So I thought that was kind of odd, because usually in most games, the player who triggers the end, triggers like the victory point scoring, what have you, does not get another turn. It's basically everybody but them gets kind of a catch-up round to finish up with, but not with Raiders. Raiders of the North Sea, whatever player actually triggers the end is going to be the last player to get to take a turn. So I thought that was a little unusual. Like I said, I don't have an issue with it. I just think it's a little odd. It's a little different than what I'm used to. So, as far as the game itself, when you finish up, you're going to score your victory points. And for some reason, I feel like I'm about to sneeze. That's weird. My dad was actually down here in the duct tape studios doing a little bit of work, and I think there was kicked up a bunch of dust. So, anyway. So, you're going to score your victory points. So, the first thing you're going to look at is, of course, your victory points along the track here. Because as you do your raids, you're going to get your victory points. Now, that's all you track along this is the victory points from your raids. Plus, of course, you know, like the bonus victory points you may get from the different crew members. So you're going to track that along. So you're going to take that total there. Then you're going to take your victory points from the armor track, which is over here, which gives you a maximum of 6. Then you're going to add your victory points from the Valkyrie track. So, you know, maybe if you had a lot of crew members, you know, taking a dirt nap, you can get a big 15 victory points, which I'm telling you, that is a nice chunk. If you're willing to grind, you know, if they have that turnover for your crew. Then you're also going to count up your tribute tiles. And like I said, when you get these tiles, you put them face down near you so the other players don't know how many victory points you've got banked away with the tribute. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's some folks out there who, you know, watch every other player like a hawk, and they sit there, you know, going, okay, I know that Joe Bob over there's got 9 points in tribute. I know that. Me, I don't look at it that hard. I mean, I sit there and go, okay, well, they've got 3 tributes, I'm guessing. I seem to recall, like, a couple of them were 3. I'm not too concerned. I don't sit there going, oh, yeah, I know it's this. Because I'm more concerned, you know, thinking about what I'm doing in the game. So, of course, once you've tallied up your victory points, whoever has the high score is the winner. Tiebreaker, I don't even think I ever really looked to see what the tiebreaker is. I'm going to take a look at maybe highest military strength. Case of a tie. Oh, furthest up the Valkyrie track is the winner. If you're still tied, player furthest up the Armory track is the winner. And I guess then if you're still tied after that, then it's a fight to the death to see who's the winner. I guess. I'm kidding. Of course not. So, we never finished in a tie, so I actually never took a peek to see what the tiebreaker rules were. So, what do I think of Raiders of the North Sea? Honestly, I really like it. I really have enjoyed it. I found it was very, very easy to get into, which a lot of Euro games of this sort, I would think, aren't going to be too difficult to wrap your head around. It really took, mainly Cameron and I started off, we played a 2-player game to learn how to play. And about the 3rd time into each of our turns, we kind of had the gist of what was going on. where it's like, okay, so you've got a little bit of a buildup early on because you're trying to get your silver, you're trying to get so you can hire your crew. You got to get provisions because if you want to go out on raids, you got to have provisions to feed the crew while they're gone. Then, of course, you're looking at, okay, so I'm getting, the various different resources from these raids. Then, like I said, I played the one game where it was like I squeaked out a win because it got to the point where I was behind on the victory point track by not a huge amount, but by a bit. And I thought, okay, well, the only way I'm going to be able to really catch up here is probably by, attacking outposts and stuff like that, harbors, whatever, knowing that I would have to lose crew in order to kind of move up this track. So I like the aspect that there's different little avenues here, that it's the person who focuses only on raiding, and this is just from my experience. I've only played this game 4 times, okay? So it's not as if I played this hundreds of times. But I have found that the player who focuses mainly on only raiding, and they kind of ignore the longhouse and being able to get these tribute tiles, and they don't really look at the Valkyrie track. They're always trying to save their crew, so they're going after places that don't have Valkyries. They don't usually win. I found that they don't normally win. So I have found that the best approach is kind of even keeled across, do some raiding, do some tributes, make sure you get a few of your crew members killed off to move up the Valkyrie track, invest a bit into the armor track as well. Now, one thing I should point out, I left out talking about the victory point score. You also get victory points for silver. So you get 1 victory point for each silver that you have. You get 1 victory point for every gold that you have. You get a victory point for every iron that you have. And you get 2 victory points for every 1 victory point for every 2 livestock you've got. So I forgot to mention that you do get victory points from some of these resources in that. Now, you don't get any victory points from the provisions, and you actually don't get any victory points from your crew. Now, some of the characters, some of the townsfolk will have items that say, oh, okay, like I said, oh, if you have this member in your crew, then you get to add a victory point to all of your tiles at the end, things like that. But you don't normally score victory points from your crew members. So, but I like the fact that you kind of have to, you kind of change direction sometimes in how you're approaching playing the game. I like how you have to, depending on where you're at, right? You have to have different colored workers to be able to do certain things. So you have to have a white or gray worker to go to the armory over here. You have to have a white or gray worker to use the longhouse. You have to, white or gray worker isn't as good as the basic worker with the silversmith. You get more from the silversmith by using a basic worker. I like the fact too that when you go into the monasteries, you need a white or gray. When you attack the fortresses, you need a white or gray worker. And these different colored workers are going to open up as different areas get raided, because you're taking the whole shebang from what's in the box here. And so, for an example, let's say I had a gray worker and I did this raid on a monastery, which takes a gray or a white, and I was successful. And I said, okay, well, so I get these. Now I've added a white worker into the equation, into the gameplay, because that white worker, unless I go on a raid, that white worker is going to end up in the village for someone else to get. So I like how that works that way. that it's like, okay, well, oh, I've got the worker that allows me to go and raid fortresses. Well, you're never going to have everything all stocked up to just be able to go raiding fortresses one after another. Usually, you're going to have to go to the village at some point, and you're going to have to use that worker to drop in someplace and give the next player an opportunity to take that white worker. So I thought that was kind of cool. Only kind of, I don't even really have dings on this game. I like it that much. Like I said, the only ding that I can kind of give it is that the little hero text kind of blends in on some of the cards. So you kind of got to look close to make sure that you don't accidentally have more than one hero in your crew. I did see a little bit of analysis paralysis. I can see, now personally, I didn't feel this way, and the rest of the gang didn't feel this way either. But with a 4-player game, you could see it running about 2 hours, and it's still fun. I enjoyed it a lot, but some players may sit there and at the end of playing it be kind of like, wow, there's not a lot of meat on the bone here for a 2-hour game. I don't know what people expect from a 2-hour game, but I mean, some folks expect like this big, epic, kind of wow sort of game if they invest more than 45 minutes or an hour into it. But yeah, I didn't feel that way, but I could see that. One of the gang did kind of mention where it was like, wow, I had fun playing it, but when we were finished, I kind of sat there and thought, wow, we invested a lot of time in a game that I'm kind of surprised it really took that long. Or words to that effect. I didn't feel that way. But then again, Cameron and I were both pretty familiar with it from having played it a couple of times before we got into a 3 and a 4-player game. So we kind of moved it along. I don't know. I got to be honest. I didn't have any AP playing this, regardless of how many players there were. Even learning how to play the game, I was kind of like, yeah, I kind of got an idea. And then as we played, it was like, oh, okay, so I'm kind of getting the jive of that. Oh, I see how that operates. Okay, that's cool. So overall, I dig it. I really do. Is it going to be everybody's cup of tea? No, probably not. I don't see, I think it's popular. I like it. There are like 2 other core games and 2 expansions to be had. And I think the expansions kind of do add a little more meat to, I believe one makes the game a little more Euro-ish, and the other one kind of makes it a little, I don't know if it's a little more complex or adds some different mechanics into it. I want to say that it adds like Jarls into it, the lords, the chieftains, and then I think the other one adds a new location in the village. So yeah, I dig it. Like I said, I think some folks will sit there and say, well, sometimes I feel like I don't have enough options while I'm playing it, simply because of what worker they might have, what color worker they've got, and where the workers are located in the village. I can kind of see that, but this is not a game where it's like, okay, so for a couple of rounds, you kind of felt like a little hamstrung in what you could do. It's not going to wipe out your entire game. It's not as if you're just like, oh, wow, those 2 rounds, boy, that really cost me the whole game. No, not really. It's pretty easy to come back from little disappointments because of the worker placement. I really think this is an awesome 2-player game, too. Really, really enjoyed it. Cameron really liked it. So I can definitely tell you that it works just as well as a 2-player game, as a 4-player game. And honestly, if you have friends who are really, overthinking things, you may not want to invite them to play this. But yeah, overall, in the end, I give Raiders of the North Sea a very, very solid 9 out of 10. That's, like I said, I kind of hinted at this when I talked about I was going to do a review today when I was talking about it last week. Kind of hinted that I really like this game. I do understand it's probably not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Again, I don't think there's a game out there that everybody loves. But yeah, I really dug it. Cameron really dug it. That's why we've played it 4 times in about a week, which is saying something. So, all right. So there you have it. Pretty long show. I pretty much went into some detail there. I apologize if I've glossed over something or if maybe I forgot one of the rules off the top of my head. I don't strip this stuff out. I just kind of, kind of zinging along as I go. But tomorrow there will be news. I will have some time. I'll be here. I will not be keeping an eye on my niece and nephew. So I will have some time to put the news together. And also do want to point out, tomorrow I am going to take a first look at, let me move some stuff again, Mystic Vale, Twilight Garden for the core game Mystic Vale. Strangely enough, I can only do an unboxing and show it off to you because I don't have the core game. It's weird. I am trying to work some stuff out with AEG because they're really cool. Really love the gang at AEG. Todd and John, and now they brought Mara on. I've never actually, I don't think I've met Mara. But every once in a while, it's kind of an oddball hiccup that like a core game comes out and I don't get a review copy of it, but then the expansions come out and I get review copies. So trying to iron that out a little bit. Because to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to send me expansions if I don't have a core game. But that's going to be on tomorrow's show. So got a lot going on this week, so hopefully you will join me either live or after the fact and check out the show. So, do want to point out, when you are not watching The Daily Dope or checking out some of the other videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. Well, by now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I will be back tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.